everybody. I would like to welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. May I have the roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Here.
Vice Chair Clark. Here. Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton, Commissioner Islander LaBerge.
Here.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Zachary, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do not have any changes to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And written public comment, we have the two comments that we received for item 3B2, which I think everybody's gotten. I didn't see any other written public comment. Did anything else come in that we haven't seen? I don't know of any. Okay. Then that takes us to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. Total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. I don't see anyone here stepping up. I don't have any speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
Yes, we have 3 people online.
Okay. And
Anyone who'd like to speak on general public comment, please raise your hand. No hands raised.
okay, thank you very much. Oops, turn the page here. Then that takes us to our youth council report. So, and welcome back from the summer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Parks and Recreations Commission. My name is Jeremy Solano Beltran. I'm the chair of Santa Barbara Youth Council, and I will be providing the update on behalf of the Youth Council today. The Santa Barbara Youth Council resumed meeting on Monday, August 19th. We are joined this year by 3 new members and have already begun working on a few projects for this fall. 2024, last Saturday, September 21st, Youth Council participated in Creek Week for the 2024 Coastal Cleanup Day at East Beach. Last year, we collected 24 pounds of trash. This year, we are happy to announce that we broke our record and collected 28.5 pounds of trash. Most of the garbage we collected included cigarette butts, bottle caps, small plastic, and broken pieces of brick and concrete. Today is also the last day for interested teens to fill an application to join the Youth Council. We have already received 7 applications for 4 voting member positions. 1 SBHS student, one from San Marcos High School, and 2 from local alternative, and school positions. We're continuing to hold interviews on Monday, October 7th, and November 4th. We're hopeful to see more SBCC dual enrollment applying this year, since we recently learned that they do qualify for the local alternative section of the school category. The Youth Council is also working alongside a few key members in the community on a variety of projects. The first is Trunk or Treat in collaboration with the Santa Barbara Police Activities League. The 5th annual Trunk or Treat will be hosted in Spencer's Adams Lot on Wednesday, October 30th. We are looking forward to lots of participation and from city departments and local nonprofits. Future Leaders of America and the Youth Council will be hosting a candidate forum for districts 1, 2, and 3. Our shared goal is to create an opportunity for local teens to get to know their candidates and create a greater sense of community. It is essential that youth and teen boys be included in local policies, and the current event date is set for Monday, October 21st. Our event will kick off at 5 p.m. with networking and meet and greets, and the forum will begin at 5:30 at the Franklin Neighborhood Center on October 21st. We're also applying to the Youth Making Change grant. As of last year, we were awarded funds to continue hosting the Youth Speak Out. This year, we plan to do the same as the Youth Speak Out continues to grow each year. Parks and Recreation, thank you for your time. Can I answer any questions that the commission may have?
None from me. I will, I'm seeing a button hover. Commissioner Aldana?
Yes, I'm always happy to receive the reports. Nice to see our youth doing good things out in the community, and thank you for all your good work.
Thank you, Commissioner Atlanta.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair Clark?
I'd like to echo Sebastian, thanks for all your good work. I had one quick question about the SBCC dual enrollment students being eligible to be considered an alternative school. So if, say, one of those students goes to Santa Barbara High School, but is also duly enrolled and taking classes at City College, am I correct in believing that now you're going to consider that Santa Barbara High School student a alternative school student?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that does apply, and we asked this several times to be sure about it and to not break any rules and to be inside of what is allowed and what is not.
And then would they also be considered like a mainstream? Could they also, so the makeup of your council, are there designated spots, I can't remember, just for alternative schools?
Yes, there is only designated spots for alternative. I think more information can be provided by our advisor, Nicole Morgan.
Okay. And traditionally, I think those spots haven't been filled, and you guys have been working really hard for that, and I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, would a student that falls under that category also be eligible to take a mainstream spot?
No, I think it's only the alternative spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, that's correct. He is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I appreciate your hard work, and I'm glad that you guys are seeking to fill those spots. And I also just want to encourage that you continue to seek diversity on that council. Thank you so much.
we are also trying really hard to try to reach to
Yeah.
especially alternative schools, since none of those spots has been filled since a lot of time
Yeah.
yet. So we're really hopeful to get those spots filled.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just going to echo what Commissioners Aldana and Clark have said. Really appreciate the work you all do. Some of these are old favorites like Trunk or Treat, but it's encouraging that you're getting the applications. I really, it's a funny goal to beat 28.5 pounds. And hopefully someday you'll come in and say, we only got 14 because that's all there were. But I know that we've got a ways to go with that one. And yeah, just my dream would be that this is so well publicized and such a competitive committee that you're sort of beating applicants out the door. I mean, it's really competitive, but you're getting there slowly, and the kind of civic engagement you're performing, I think, can only help but increase the reputation and profile of the commission. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And Commissioner Nander-LaBerge.
Just a quick question. I'm just looking on the web page. I'm looking for just the application. Do you know, is it on the web page, or how do I find it?
The application, I think it's Youth Making Change grant, and it's awarded to local group of teens that are trying to improve the community.
Yeah, and the applications for the commission itself close today, don't they?
It closes today,
Yeah, I believe it
think-
does, doesn't it?
like at 5?
I'm not sure about that, if it closes today.
Yeah, all the others do, yeah? Isn't that correct, Director Zachary? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Nicole.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Morgan. I'm the staff liaison for the Youth Council. So there's two different ones that we're talking about here.
Right.
One is for the advisory boards, and those can be found on the general website. It does close today at 5 p.m. I believe if you go to the general city website under boards and commissions, and then I'm not remembering correctly if it's volunteer, there's one button that will lead you back to there, or there's apply for vacancies as well. Our interview dates are listed on the website as well.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that takes us out. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
That's right.
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing from you as the year progresses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. That takes us to Commissioner Committee assignment reports. And I think I will start with Commissioner Unanderleberge this time.
I do not have any updates to report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Aldana.
Nothing to report this month.
And Vice Chair Clark.
I did attend the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, and we'll touch on all those topics later in the agenda. And I did get to visit the band shell during a live performance and was happy to say that the audience was super enthralled with the new venue. And I think the performers were also really happy, so yay.
Yeah, fabulous. All right, well, we had a Park Foundation meeting at noon today, and aside from the normal financials, et cetera, we spent actually quite a bit of time talking about the band shell and how to best utilize it and engage the community in various types of performances. And I think there's quite a bit of excitement about the band shell being back. All right, that takes us to commission and staff communications. Any?
Chair McGill, no additional communications.
Okay, thank you. Ceremonial items?
And we do not have any ceremonial
Okay.
items this month.
Thank you. All right, then that takes us to consent. We have the summary of council actions, which we all have in our packages. And that's for information, unless anybody has any questions. All right, and then that takes us to the minutes of the last meeting, with the recommendation being that we waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 28th.
So moved.
All right, do we have a second? All right, moved and seconded. We can go to a vote. Thank you, okay. And that brings us to trees.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Mr. Slack.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove a cook pine located at 101 Santa Cruz Boulevard. This is a setback tree, and it was initially reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Commission during the July 24th, 2024 regular meeting. During that review, the Parks and Recreation Commission voted to deny the removal without prejudice to allow the applicant to return after exploring if there were essentially alternative design strategies that would allow for the retention of the tree. So during the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting this month, we were fortunate to have the project architect there to do a pretty full presentation and kind of walk the committee through how the building was initially designed and some of the design challenges of incorporating the tree, which was really the goal of the project during concept, to keep the tree and build around it, which is kind of why the building is laid out the way it's laid out. So during the building essentially, and the seating area patio, it all ties directly into one another, and there's overhead, there's like a canopy that's over some of the seating area, so it's much more structurally than just say like a concrete patio. If you're able to make a site visit, the grade's been elevated as well too, and some of that has to do with, things well outside of our sphere, which is like maximizing the building size on a small, corner lot and things of that nature. But the building itself and the seating area, this patio, they tie directly into one another. They flow kind of seamlessly in and out of the structure out onto the seating area. And because of that, there's a shared continuous foundation that runs all the way around the entire perimeter of the building. That was approved and designed to be a solid continuous foundation, with the expectation that the root system wasn't going to be as significant on the backside or the backside of the tree that was close to the property. So they walked us through that, and we had previously received correspondence from the soil engineer, and essentially the long and short of it is you can't hybridize foundations because the earth moves too much, and you couldn't do sections of like a grade beam or whatever the technical jargon is for sort of separating that foundation in sections to allow for preservation of roots, and then having a continuous foundation on the rest of the house, because you get this weird sort of jumbling, you get inconsistent movement that can lead to damage to the structure. And so structural engineers, soil engineers, nobody will sign off on a foundation that's not all one design strategy. So that was a huge factor. And then I think the other big factor in the presentation was even if they were to have to go back completely to the drawing boards and redesign this structure that's already been approved, their concern was that there still would be significant root loss. Those foundation footings would have to be about 2 feet on center. And if you look at the picture, it is a pretty significant amount of root impact if you were to even try to take that approach. So it wouldn't be like you'd have a little bit of concrete on each end and that's long, horizontal span preserving the roots. There would still be significant root loss, thereby a concern with long-term tree failure and decay, and not to mention just sort of the financial impact of having to start all over when they've already begun construction. So those were all things talked about. We talked about it on site. The architect was on site as well, gave, again, a little bit more context, being there, looking at it in person, to some of the challenges. It was still a tough review. The committee was really appreciative of the applicant, taking so much time, and then the design team to come in and really walk them through so they had like a real full picture of the challenges that were present. After review, the committee made a recommendation to approve the removal on the condition that a new tree be planted, essentially in sort of the same general area, because the front yard's really constrained, that can achieve 30 feet in height at maturity, and recommended the commission could use the finding that a reasonable and practical development of the property constitutes the tree's removal.
Okay, thank you. I will start with Commissioner Hernandez Laberge for questions.
So if they're going to plant a tree that can reach 30 feet in roughly the same spot, how are we not going to end up in the same place with the problem with roots?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Hernandez Laberge, I'm sort of generalizing its location so you can kind of envision where it goes, because a lot of the site is structure. But a continuous footing, you could use root barrier. The tree would obviously be pushed away from the structure as far as it makes practical sense. So I think you're significantly reducing the potential for issues long term. We can what if, but I think it's still a much more viable strategy if you're looking at not causing long-term damage to a structure.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Aldana.
Is there going to be sidewalk installed?
There is sidewalk.
Okay, from the picture, I don't see any sidewalk. So I'm just curious, is it going to?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I believe there is sidewalk on the shoreline side. There's not sidewalk on the Santa Cruz side, and I'm unsure about those improvements, but that would be, on the opposite side of the structure from the tree.
Okay, as I look at the picture, there's nothing.
I could be mistaken. I don't know. It really doesn't play a huge factor.
Oh, that picture right
Yeah.
there?
Oh, yeah, no, he's right. I'll say I've walked there twice, so I've walked that sidewalk. It starts just past the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I just to clarify, because it's obviously unusual for us to be seeing this after the foundations have been dug. And it was approved not expecting to find this root problem. Is that basically, this is a surprise?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, that's correct. And not all of the grading's been done, so it actually still encroaches closer to the tree. So they've basically just been on hold as they've pursued this process after exposing the roots, getting the arborist report, and finding out that there's incompatibilities.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I had the same question about where do you put a 30-foot tree on that lot. All right, if there are no other questions for Mr. Slack, I do not have any speaker slips. do we have anybody online?
Chair Magill, yes, we do have people online. Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. There are no raised hands.
All right, and were you here to speak on the item? Yeah, on 181. Oh, okay, a different one, okay. Well, we'll need a speaker slip, though, yeah, and they're in the back, yeah. All right, so if there is no comment, I will open it up for discussion and/or a motion. Don't all. Yes. Yes. Or and a motion, yes. Obviously, we're having, Vice Chair Clark?
Hoping for more discussion, but I'm going to make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation, trying to find my page here, to approve the removal of the cook pine at 101 Santa Cruz Boulevard, based on the condition that they replace the tree. You have yours in front of you.
With a 30-foot.
With a 30-foot, a tree that can achieve a minimum of 30 feet in height at maturity tree. Although, you know, that recommendation doesn't state,
Yeah, it's on the here.
is that not part of it? I'll just say on the lot.
And
Did they say in the setback?
it
Were they
says,
conditioning the replacement in the setback?
it does not say in the setback. It just says with a tree that can achieve a minimum of 30 feet in height at maturity.
Okay, on the lot.
And the
Oh,
finding.
actually, no, actually, or in the setback.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
finding being reasonable and practical.
Based on the reasonable and practical development of property.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. And are you wanting to speak again? Okay, okay.
I just, you know, for thought processes and transparency, this was a really hard decision to make, because I don't believe that anybody on the committee wanted to see this tree grow. I mean, go. It's a part of the urban forest. It belongs to everybody. It's gorgeous. But the property owners did act in good faith. They went in with a design to preserve this tree, and they uncovered a surprise. And so they're not able to, you know, honor that original intent, but through no fault of their own. So it was really tough, I think, for everybody on the committee, because nobody wants to see it go. But
Yeah, and as a regular in that area, and I know we all denied last time for those reasons, but I kind of landed where you did, which is, seems like really truly a good faith effort has been made here to do the right thing. All right, Commissioner Hernando-LaBerge.
So then, what is the difference as far as the application then versus the application now, other than a more thorough conversation with the property owner?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Hernando-LaBerge, I think that was really the missing link, was just the detail. And while I can't do as good of a job as the architect did trying to describe the challenges, I think that it was the committee's consensus that it wasn't a practical approach, given how often the footings would occur, and sort of just arborists not understanding engineering on the detailed level that engineers understand engineering. So that we were all kind of thinking you could make this huge span across them, and you cannot, you know, and it would require a complete redesign of the property that's already in the middle of construction. And even then, root loss is still at such a level that I don't know if anybody in good faith would say this tree is safe, given how many roots would have to be cut and putting all those footings in amongst the roots.
Chair
Okay.
McGill and Commissioner Onander-Laberge, I think also, as the staff report references, this, like any major new house development or commercial property development, you have to have engineering and you need an engineer to sign off on your plans. And, putting a property owner in jeopardy of having an engineer say, I'm not going to because of structural risk is unfortunately the situation we face in this case. Based on my conversations with Mr. Slack, it's my understanding that the property owner had every intention of keeping this tree. And it's one of those things that can happen during construction projects where one realizes that despite best of intentions, there's unintended consequences as a result of once the project actually gets built.
I mean, I would think that the fact that the care with which those roots were exhumed shows, a really, a careful intent and an intent to to keep the tree. Vice Chair Clark?
Just to, reiterate, if the intent hadn't been to incorporate the house design around this tree, I'd be coming from a totally different place.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, you're gonna move here, build a house, cut down this tree, and we'll all have to look at your house, and we can't look at our tree anymore. But because the owner wanted to incorporate it and did everything they could, it feels like it's reasonable and practical development of property.
Okay, I think we're ready to go to a vote. Okay. Thank you. All right, Arroyo Avenue.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next item for review is a request to remove a Monterey cypress. This is located within the front setback at 535 Arroyo Avenue. This item also is coming back from a previous review that occurred on June 26, 2024. During that meeting, the Commission voted to deny the application without prejudice to allow the applicant to come back with more detailed information that spoke to potential risks associated with the tree. The applicant did provide a pretty detailed arborist report that was included in the packet that kind of talked about the tree, talked about risk, and things just kind of associated with what we would call like a general health and risk assessment. And that was really kind of what the applicant was directed to do. So the committee reviewed the application, we did a site visit, and then also they went into detail kind of reviewing the arborist report. Overall, the arborist determined the tree to be in reasonably good health. The risk rating was considered to be moderate, which is pretty kind of middle of the road in terms of like tree risk assessment, with a notation that, during periods of like elevated winds or storms, that can elevate the risk, but in terms of just general risk and what we would be able to like qualify, it was listed as moderate. They did provide some additional information about restricted root zone, and I think that was some of the comments from the committee, and some of our discussion during the June meeting was really trying to understand if there are any issues there. They highlighted some issues kind of with this restricted root zone, talking about where the tree developed and lots of rocks and other materials that can cause a tree's root system to develop, less than in a perfect world. In a perfect world, we have a tree in a giant open space and its roots would spread out really wide and shallow, and then that would be great. But that's oftentimes not what we have. You see trees growing out in the mountains, like in a rock seam and all kinds of crazy things, and that's why we love them, because they're super adaptable. But that was the real, I think, concern noted with this tree, is that with there's like sort of a retaining wall, there's an elevated grade, that there did exist the potential for, a restricted root zone that was difficult to really examine and qualify on a detailed level, but it was highlighted. The committee generally agreed with that comment. The moderate risk rating was less of a factor, again, because that's, I think, pretty reasonable within a normal risk threshold for something to be considered moderate. Most things are actually pretty moderate in risk. But again, they generally did agree with the potential for a poorly developed root system, and, you know, the potential for the tree to fail as a result of that. They also commented that if a new tree was planted in the front yard, it could develop better, you know, there would be less concern with a potentially compromised root system. And after review, they did vote to approve the removal on the condition that the applicant plant a new tree that can achieve 30 feet in height at maturity. And I believe they used the finding that good forest management would support the removal.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? All right, I do. So I think you've kind of answered one of them. When I was reading the report and looking at what defined moderate, I was left with the impression that if we were talking about a street tree, for example, or a tree in one of our parks, a moderate risk rating would not justify removal. Generally, is that a fair assessment?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking the question is I wasn't, reading the arborist report and reading through, I wasn't 100% clear how I was getting there from here. Yet I was looking at a unanimous recommendation to remove, which then gets down to restricted roots. Now, is the issue there the retaining wall and it being an unbalanced root restriction, which would cause it to topple in a given direction? I wasn't sure I understood that completely.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think anytime you have like a tree that develops in like a peculiar area, like, and it was kind of pointed out in the arborist report, you don't really know fully like how that root system's developed. So yeah, the retaining wall, the grade change, the tree, the probability of failure probably would be, I think house side too. So it's like it would fail towards the property is the general consensus there as well. But certainly some unknowns. I think that anytime you're evaluating, like especially what we would call like the root crown or like the general area where the base of the tree and the roots kind of begin, it can be difficult. A lot of times you'll see a tree failure and it's like, wow, this is pretty obvious, but you can't see that until after, the tree uproots and you find out that there weren't any good roots or there were limited roots due to a situation similar to this. And I think that was really what was kind of driving the committee's opinion on this specific application.
Okay. I was just a little surprised to see this one be unanimous, quite honestly. Anybody else have any questions? All righty. I don't have any speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
Chair McGill, we do have some attendees. Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. We don't have any raised hands.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, open it up for any discussion leading up to a motion or a motion.
I'll make the motion. And to agree with the street tree committee recommendation and approve the removal on the condition that the applicant replace the front setback tree that can achieve 30 feet in height at maturity. And the finding being the good forest management.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Oh, I was just looking back over my notes from the meeting, and you said you were surprised at the unanimous. There was a lot of talk about tree risk assessment rubrics and safety first, and not being able to do like a root crown search here, and people were talking about safety. So I think that's what they were focusing on.
Okay.
And the unknown.
And the unknown.
In this situation.
Yeah, okay. Do you have your speaker on?
Is this picture that was submitted, which seems to show one side of the house, which I thought was where the tree is that the same? Am I looking at the same?
I think so.
Well, where's the other tree? Where's that tree?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Hernandez Bears, as part of the review in June, the cook pine that's in the front of the photo here was removed.
That was approved.
So they're just getting rid of all the trees.
We approved the cook pine last.
Yeah, that
in
was
June.
conditioned for replacement too, with
Yeah.
the only difference being during the discussion for this review, they, similar to the commission's last approval with the 101 Santa Cruz, they made it explicit that it be replaced in the front setback.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further questions or discussion, let's go to a vote. All right, thank you very much. All right, now we move on to Dover Road.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next item for review is the request to remove 4 silver dollar gum eucalyptus. These are located within the front setback at 1322 Dover Road. There were multiple issues listed on the application for removal, including sewer lateral issues, damage to driveway, and also the inability to do landscape improvements under the trees, stating that they really made it difficult to do landscape improvements. The property's going through like design review right now. They're building a new structure on the property, or plan to. The committee reviewed the trees, noted they were in pretty good health, reasonably maintained. They commented that they've, it was their opinion, the committee's opinion, that they contributed pretty significantly to the site. There were, if minimal damage to the driveway, surrounding issues, and then there was general consensus that there are landscape plants that can function well underneath or within the general area where the existing eucalyptus trees are located. And after the review, made a recommendation to deny the request for the removal of the 4 silver dollar gum eucalyptus.
Okay, thanks. So what kind of landscaping would work under those trees?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I would have to decline answering that because I'm an arborist and not a landscape designer.
Okay.
There's roses
You
under
get,
them right now.
you get a pass. Does anybody have any questions? It was foggy up there yesterday. All right.
I do have one
All
question.
right, Commissioner Aldana.
So as far as with the sewer lateral, is there much damage to the sewer line?
And Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I don't know the details of that. I think it's always going to be the general opinion of the committee that almost all the times those issues can be repaired without requiring tree removal. Mm-hmm. There definitely exist times where that can't be the case, but thinking back to last month where we saw that, the lift station and on that property at Cannon Perdido, like they were able to make those repairs and it didn't cause detrimental damage to the tree. And I think that's always going to be the committee's determination when they're reviewing setback trees for removal.
And I agree with the observation that there was no observable damage to the driveway. And of course, without curbs and sidewalks, it's hard, you don't get that same kind of offset that you do in a more urban environment. But, I wasn't observing hardscape damage. All right. I don't see any other questions. I don't have any speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
Chair McGill, we do have an attendee online. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. No raised hands.
All right, in which case, I'll go ahead and make a motion on this one, that we agree with the Street Tree Committee recommendation to deny the setback removal request at 1322 Dover Road of the Silver Dollar Gums, or with the determination that there are no findings.
I'll second.
All righty. If there is no further discussion, going once, going twice, we will go to a vote. Okay, thank you. And that takes us to our last one, APS.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last item for review is the request to remove 4 eucalyptus trees. These are located within the property at 181 Alameda Padre Serra. The applicant stated 2 primary reasons listed on the application, which included concerns with fire as well as tree failure. Just for reference, this is just located within inside the foothill high fire hazard zone, so it is in a high fire hazard area. The committee looked at the trees. They had been recently pruned, so they were reasonably maintained, and they talked about the fire risk, and really, the fire department's really been helpful in us understanding what really constitutes fire risk and fuel and things like that. And a lot of it, especially with the eucalyptus, tends to be debris accumulation at the base of the trees that creates this fuel ladder scenario where, fire can then move up the tree. It's a freshly landscaped area, so there wasn't a lot of debris, so they didn't see it as a real fire concern. They looked at tree failure. Most of the trees are pretty small. There does happen to be one, pretty large river red gum that is on the property. I think they thought that the smaller trees were much lower risk. When looking at the large eucalyptus, there hasn't been a lot of site changes over the years. It's a pretty old property. It looks like things have been kind of unchanged for the most part. It doesn't look like a lot of road repairs or sidewalk issues have been, leading to think that there's been a lot of root pruning or just general site disturbance. We have seen multiple applications along this stretch of APS, and there was discussion on site about that as well, and they did make a point to kind of reference the difference in the eucalyptus species. The 2 that were approved were blue gums, not maintained, and much, I would say, poor health generally. Speaking comments from the committee, and here you had different species of eucalyptus that have been maintained, and they drew kind of big differences between the 3 properties. And then also noting that, blue gum as a species tends to fail, and it's like we would call at the root plate or a whole tree failing, whereas you typically don't see that as much with the species of eucalyptus that are present here. It's kind of exclusive to the blue gum species, which is one of the reasons why they have a bad reputation. And so they did make a point to point out that during discussion and wanted to make sure that it was part of the staff report so that the commission knew that they saw it as kind of sort of separate issues, despite the trees all falling within the same genus. And after review, made a recommendation to deny the request for the removal of the 4 eucalyptus at 181 APS, or Alameda Padre Serra, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll kick off with a question. I mean, looking at the written communication, and we've got the 2 written communications, certainly it's good to understand the differences between the species. It feels a bit subtle. But I guess when I look at the written communications, there's effectively language that we used to approve the last 2 applications being used here as well, and a lot of it revolves around the fire corridor and the limited evacuation routes out of that area. And so then it brings the risk versus consequence conversation into play, which we just basically had with a different conclusion in the last application, in the last tree that we looked at. Well, one minus the one on the Monterey pine. And I guess what I'm wondering is if something is a moderate risk, which is what I'm hearing you kind of describe, in a unique evacuation zone, what consideration should that have? I mean, what makes this different from what we did before in terms of the evacuation route?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think, so if you kind of parse it out, the 3 trees are pretty small, you know, and I think that the height and things like that certainly factor into risk. And so the 3 of these 4 trees are pretty small, you know, trees and pretty low risk situations. So I think if you look at the big one, again, different species, it leans a different direction. But I think in terms of if the tree were to fail in the street, it's the exact same point. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I don't think the committee would disagree that from that specific perspective that is an arguable, like, valid concern. You know, if the tree falls across the road, it does prevent, like, significant access leaving that area in the event of, like, an emergency situation.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Slack? Commissioner Aldana?
Yes. If we agree to maybe just remove the tall one, is that a possibility here?
Yeah, we've done that before.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, yeah, I mean, the commission has full authority to make a recommendation either in, you know, full support of removals or partial support or complete denial.
Got it.
Vice Chair Clark.
In using the tree risk assessment rubric that was included in one of the submissions today, what kind of risk would you assign this tree of falling?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I would defer to answer that. I don't think I would be speculating without spending more time looking at the tree.
Yeah.
I think that, I think just to kind of surmise the committee's perception of this tree is they determined it to be relatively low risk. If they thought it was a real high risk situation, you know, I think that they would have recommended the removal of the tree from their perspective.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to go to public comment. I have one speaker slip. And give that just to Nathan. Yeah, thanks. Well, I normally would take them in the order that I get them, but I'm happy to defer if you, yep. All right. Thank you very much. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name, but Brian Delshad, is that right? Wow, brilliant.
You are.
Oh, thank you. If you come forward, you be there, and you once the go to that one, and then you just whack it down, yeah. And then once the clock starts, you will have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to have a clock here. Oh, there it is. Okay, hi, thank you for having me here. So, yeah, I mean, I hear that I'm just kind of surmising that there's a little bit of a bend towards potentially removal of the larger tree potentially here. So, yeah, just to second that, it is very dangerous. Cleveland School is just 2 doors up, so I only have one house separating me between me and Cleveland School. I have the letters that you might have. One is from one of my neighbors up the street that is supporting it, and I believe a number of neighbors are going to either be on the call or here or also submitted letters. And I have a letter from the Eucalyptus Hill Improvement Association, who, you know, some of these people have lived in for generations. And they basically have put 4 things that they're concerned about. One is the tree hazard, the falling tree hazard. One of them actually really astutely put an example of 2 trees that fell on APS that were told that they were healthy, and they did fall. So we're just curious about what happened here at 231 APS just last year, where they did fall. It closed down the road. And it was, yeah, it was a big problem. We had the whole street closed, and it took a long time for the city to be able to chop it up. These trees are huge. That's for the larger one. The 4 reasons that the property association put are falling hazard fire, community impact for evacuation, and no, I'm just going to leave it at those 3. I would say for the smaller ones, I would just be concerned because they're right at the sidewalk where the Cleveland, there's only one sidewalk there. It's not a 2-sided one. All the kids are going up and down there, and bark falls off. And I'm not in control of keeping that tree. The big one actually has the least bark, but the little ones, I don't know if it's a species thing or its age, but bark falls, and it's really dangerous. So I'm just going to name that as additional concern, or a branch falling as an additional concern for those smaller ones. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next speaker, do you care to comment about the trees at 231? Are those the blue gum eucalyptus?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, that's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was
So you're
definitely
bi-
sort of the catalyst. The failure of that tree was the catalyst for the other 2 applications that we received shortly after.
Right. So that's really the issue of the root plate failure versus branch failure type of scenarios. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There was one in the same time frame in the Salinas condos,
Yeah,
around the same month.
okay. But the 231 is the, okay. All right, thank you. And then our second speaker is William Coglizer, sorry. And I know you know the drill.
Not really, but I got 2 minutes. I live at 227 La Vista Grande. I've been in Santa Barbara for 40 years, 26 of which at that address. This is where my house is. These are the trees. I am concerned about these trees. This house has a new owner. This house has been, and these trees have been a nuisance since I've lived in that house. We finally have an owner that has taken responsibility for the property and has already cut down one of the trees and is trying real hard to clean that property up. In that period of time that I've lived there, I've been evacuated 3 times. It's always scared me being on this street. If this is my house, and if the fire comes from uphill, which it inevitably will, I've got one way out, and it's past those trees. The only other option I have is to go up APS and come down Eucalyptus Hill Road. This is all wooded area. This is all wooded area. If this place catches fire, I'm toast. Insurance is going up, and I might add, just walking on this street is a tripping hazard. That's the tree in question. You can look, this is today, and there's already debris there, after Brian has done a great job of cleaning up. Ordinarily, and it's steep. You walk up this street, it's steep, and if this stuff is in the sidewalk like it usually is, you're lucky you don't break your neck. These things need to go. We have a responsible owner here that's trying to clean up the neighborhood. He's doing a great job.
All right, thank you very much. All right, appreciate the comments and appreciate the concern. The one thing I will caveat before we get too far is, as we all know, debris is rarely, if ever, considered a condition for removal. That's just kind of the nature of trees. That does not preclude the rest of the conversation, though. Do we have any discussion?
Chair McGill?
Motion? Sorry.
There still may be people online.
Oh, I'm
for
sorry.
public
Yes, thank you for stopping me. Do we have anybody online?
Chair McGill, we do have somebody in attendance. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. No raised hands.
Okay, thank you, and thank you again. I was getting ahead of myself. All right, now, discussion or a motion? Go ahead. No, I'm sorry, not unless we have a specific question for you. Okay, no way.
It's a question for Mr. Slack, and it's a little bit vague, but maybe you can help me out. If we're going to start looking at trees in relationship to an evacuation corridor, how many more trees are in this? Off the top of your head, roughly, how many more trees are there in this evacuation corridor that could be affected by the falling of one tree?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, that's pretty difficult to say. I don't have like a very intimate recollection of it. I think, there's merit to the argument and, size and scale leading to more complexity, whereas like if you think of going up APS or Alameda Padre Serra, towards like Eucalyptus Hill, there's a lot of trees, but there's not nearly the size and scale as some of the trees that we looked at previously and then that exists on this property as well. So, bigger stuff takes a lot longer to clear, smaller stuff not so much, but I can't say, with any accuracy what level of challenge exists on that street.
Okay.
And there's so many other streets in that,
Right.
all throughout the Riviera and stuff that kind of face similar challenges, you know.
So then I guess, so this one particular street is not unique, and it's a evacuation corridor like definition. There's multiple streets that could be considered that. So if we set precedent by removing a healthy tree on this street, potentially hundreds of trees on the Riviera could be affected?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, I would have to say that we can't answer that. It could very well be that Alameda Padre Serra is a critical access route. These are sort of like quasi-arterial streets, can play like a huge role to these collector streets feeding into it, and there being, only certain ways out. We'd have to consult with like fire department and other emergency personnel to be able to say that with any accuracy.
Okay, and then along that line, is there any concerted, multi-department risk assessment done on evacuation corridors and threats to our citizens from trees and fires or anything like that?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, the city has a community wildfire protection plan, and that plan dictates a lot of our vegetation management activities based on the city's knowledge and experience with where people live, particularly in high fire hazard areas, and the need to ensure that evacuations can occur. Not only that, but also that the fire personnel are in a position to actually fight the fire safely, because it's their lives that are at risk in responding to a fire. So we could go down a rabbit hole with this, but I would hazard to guess that there are tens of thousands of trees in the Riviera. It is a very treed neighborhood area of town, which does contribute to fire risk. And it's not just trees, it's vegetation, and vegetation that can serve to carry fire from the ground up. It might be useful for the commission to have a presentation on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan at some point in the future, just to give you that larger context of not only what the plan says, and it's a very robust plan. It was updated actually during the pandemic. It was grant funded. And then, as you know, we're doing a tremendous amount of work in our open space parks, which is designed to address wildfire resiliency efforts, again, based on that plan, but even going one step further, because our idea is that we want to develop landscapes that are more tolerant of fire and lower risk, but yet still provide that habitat and open space value that's really important.
Yeah, I think that would be a very good presentation to have in the near future. And I think this whole thought process behind evacuation routes and safety for everybody, and especially the firefighters, is something that should very much be a part of that presentation. Commissioner Nader-LaBerge.
I'm not sure how long you've been a resident of Santa Barbara, but there's been some pretty significant fires up in that area, like Sycamore Canyon Fire, the T Fire. Have we had any fires where we were trying to get people out of those areas, but there were issues because there were trees blocking the route?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Hernando LaBerge, I don't have that information handy. I think it's, I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
It's a tough one because it's, they're not huge trees, they're different species than the other trees. And I appreciate that. I mean, one of the, I think it was the first one we looked at, there were also some other issues with the slope and with water running and potentially compromising the root systems. I mean, there were some mitigating circumstances with the other one, but it's a slippery slope. I mean, where do you stop? So, yeah.
I built this up, may I allow you to look at it more closely by hand?
I think at this point, we were at a point where we just need to continue our discussion, but thanks. I've been up there and walked it. Yeah, I'm very familiar with it.
You guys understand how many houses?
Yeah, I do, yes, yes.
I'm going to make a bold recommendation. I'm going to make the motion to disagree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee. And I see this as a problematic health and safety issue for the neighborhood, for the residents, and I would say to go ahead and remove the 4 trees. And that's my motion.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? We do not have a second. How long do I give this? Do we have a counter motion on the table? Does somebody make a counter motion? Commissioner Hernando LaBerge.
My phrasing is going to be completely off. But
Don't worry about it, we'll get there.
I move to leave the 3 smaller trees and remove the bigger one in the interest of public safety.
All right, we have a second, we have a motion on the table to partially disagree with the Street Tree Committee and approve the removal of the large tree and retain the 3 smaller trees, with the finding being, I guess it would be public safety, whatever that finding is. I don't have my finding sheet with me. Safety of personnel, yeah, dictates, yeah. All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion on the table that we all know what the motion is. Is there any further discussion before we go to a vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldana.
Okay, so as far as the other 3 trees, if the bark falls down, whose responsibility is it to keep the sidewalk clean?
That's a question, Mr. Slack. I would take that.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, it's the tree owner's responsibility to keep the sidewalk reasonably clear. The city's street tree ordinance also has a specific codified section in there that has similar language. So even when a street tree is in front of your home, like the adjacent property owner has a responsibility to keep it reasonably clear of debris. And reasonably is an interesting word. It's not like spotless. There can be debris there, but there does rest some responsibility throughout the entire community for all property owners adjacent to sidewalks to keep them reasonably clear of debris.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate, debris is not considered a reason for removal.
May I comment on that?
I'm sorry. No, we need to keep moving. I'm sorry.
I don't own that. 8 feet of it is the city right of
Yeah.
way. I will take care of it best.
Yeah, and what Mr. Slack is explaining is that even if it's a street tree, there's a reasonable responsibility on the adjacent homeowner to codified in the municipal code. Yeah. All right, so we have a motion. Commissioner Aldana?
Yes, one more. On the other 3 trees, can we, let's just add without prejudice, and then if he could come and, give him a second chance around on the other 3?
No,
Making a different motion.
not without making it, and at this point, I would say the reason you do without prejudice is for additional information. And I would think that the only additional information would be if we had something come from the fire department at this point. I mean, so if you look at the other without prejudice, there was significant engineering or arborist reports that we were waiting on, which is what the without prejudice, as I understand it, is for. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table. I think we need to go to a vote. All right, the motion passes. And, sir, you do have the right of appeal, should you choose to, and I don't remember the language, but basically you have 10 days if you want to appeal to City Council. Correct, yes, it's 10 days. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. And that takes us to, where am I? The director's report.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I was all ready for the summer camp report. Forgot about the director's report, but I'll give it a shot. We're very pleased to share with you that we are having a Trail Maintenance Day on September 28th, which is this Saturday. It's something that we do in partnership with our trail partners, including Santa Barbara County Parks, Los Padres Forest Association, Sage Trail Alliance, Montecito Trails Foundation. And this one will be held on Rattlesnake Trail, so that's in Rattlesnake Canyon, which is a city park. It's in support of the National Public Lands Day. As you can imagine, particularly with the significant rain events we've had for the last 2 years, we've had significant trail damage. And Rattlesnake has been one of those trails that many people have been able to use, while other trails such as San Ysidro continue to be closed. Because of that, it's quite busy, and therefore continues to need a variety of trail maintenance. The level 1 trail maintenance is mostly brushing. Nobody's using major equipment. So volunteers that may not even have much trail maintenance experience are very welcome to participate and learn how to do that. We have contact information for Steve Biddle in our department in your staff report, but anyone can always call 564-5439 to indicate they're interested in volunteering. In addition to actually being able to achieve something and see your good work, you get a free lunch at the end, and it will be at Schofield Park, and that is often, I think, something people really enjoy, because after a lot of hard work, it is going to be warmer on Saturday than it is right now, so it'll be a nice opportunity to thank our volunteers. And then movie night. If you haven't had a chance to watch a movie at the Santa Barbara Golf Club, Saturday, October 5th is your next opportunity. Kung Fu Panda 4 is the feature film, and it includes free popcorn for all attendees. It's open to the public. We have family and children families with children that often come, and there's also a bunch of activities for kids as well. Registration is not required. However, anyone that does attend might want to bring a blanket or a low chair. This is an example of something that Corsco, our golf operator, does. It's included in their agreement with the city in terms of maintaining and managing the golf courses, that they invite the community in for community events. So it's very popular. Alice Keck Park Memorial Garden has had a growing volunteer crew that shows up regularly to help us maintain those beds. If you haven't been there lately, there's been a real improvement to that park, both by city staff, but also by our volunteers. So on September 7th, we did a little volunteer appreciation event for them, providing beverages and snacks And they were told they didn't have to work, but they still worked anyway. So we're really, really, really thankful for them. We have 20 active volunteers. And then the Douglas Family Preserve, we had our second community meeting on September 18th. This followed the first one we did in June. And this one gave staff the opportunity to present the plans that we have for the wildfire resiliency work that will begin in mid-October and likely carry for a couple of months. We had maps showing the areas. We had fire staff and department staff talking about the work effort that would be happening, and then all of this information is also available on our webpage, so people can go check it out, look at the map, and actually open up a document that shows the exact type of work that will be done in each area of the preserve. So that was also very successful. I think we are building a great core of neighbors and park user support for really tackling some tough issues related to vegetation management while also enhancing the habitats in the preserve and addressing some of the trail issues that have gone long untouched. So we're looking forward to the work, and then also as we go into the next calendar year, which is not too far away, we'll be beginning to talk about some other work that we'll be able to begin developing for that park, and again continuing to have community engagement opportunities so that people can both volunteer and or be familiar with and weigh in on the things that we're doing. As part of this meeting, we did a little survey. I don't have the results, asking people which trails they preferred. And what was the other thing? Oh, how to use mulch in the park. So we're going to generate quite a bit of wood chip, which of course we'd like to leave there because it's better than having to dispose of it. I don't know those results, but that will also weigh into the work effort that happens this fall. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Great. All good stuff. That takes us to summer camp. Hello, Mr. Hanna, welcome.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, Rich Hanna, Recreation Manager. I haven't been here for a while, so it's
No, you
good to
haven't.
see you all. I'm excited to be here to provide this presentation. There's a lot of work that goes into the summer camp planning. In fact, we just had our debrief last week, and we're already planning for 2025. So about 10 months that go into delivering camps and programs for this year, a 9-week summer program. So just talking a little bit about the programming that we provided this year. We offered a total of 20 camps and 162 sessions. When the department looks at the types of camps that we're looking to offer, we look at past performance and success, so that's part of our review and our debrief every summer. We look at what other programs are being offered by other service providers locally so that we're not duplicating the market and making sure that we're providing, a diverse amount of programs and activities for families in this community. That ensures that we have, as you can see up here, a very diverse range of camps that include art, sports, engineering, business development for busy girls, and water safety, and all of these things actually do not duplicate in terms of the programs and activities we offer here on our city beaches and parks. Of the 20 camps that we offer, 3 are provided by staff, so that's the Summer Fun program, the Junior Lifeguard program, and Nature Camp. The other 17 camps are provided by third-party contractors. Partnering with service providers, they bring a level of expertise. They're successful locally in offering programs, and we partner with them to bring that to the department to offer it to the community. And really, when you think about that, those are the people that offer things like ceramics, which I couldn't do or teach our staff to do, things like trapeze and other programs that really provide that diverse level of activities and so forth. One of the key things I wanted to highlight on this slide is, because I think it goes unrepresented every year, is the amount of training that goes in for our staff. On a minimum, staff spend anywhere to 10 to 16 hours every year receiving annual or new training. They receive background checks and TB testing. They are required to participate in orientations, not only to be a city employee, but how to be a successful camp counselor, how to manage inclusion situations. They also receive certifications in AED, CPR, first aid, and they're also mandated reporters. When we work with our contractor camps, we expect the exact same thing. So there's an expectation that if somebody's delivering a program as a contractor on behalf of this department, they have the same certifications, the same background training. They may do their own specific independent training as it relates to the types of activities that they're offering, but they're also required to sign off on our independent contractor manual, which lays out a lot of our registration processes, our inclusion processes, how to work with parents, what's expected for field trips, so that there is some consistency for parents, whether you're dropping your kid off for a camp that's provided by a contractor or a city staff representative. In terms of marketing, like I said, we started planning for the 2024 season this time last year, and it truly is a 10-month campaign. This year we did launch registration in February. We've looked at what other service providers are being doing. I would say that we were a little late to the game last year. The campaign consisted of print material, social media. We used digital channels to reach the largest target audience that we could possibly reach. Having the campaign roll out early in February did align us a lot with some of our competitors that offer very unique and boutique camps, so like the Moxie and some of these other groups locally that have very popular camps, whether it's the Moxie, Lego, Zoo Camp, those types of things. The earlier registration, we saw all of our camps that typically fill up with the earlier registration. It gave parents a longer lead time to pick other camps to fill in as they got closer to summer. And I'll talk about the statistics and so forth in terms of the numbers that we serve. But overall, we had a very successful campaign to lead into our 2024 season, and we're looking at duplicating that for the 2025 season with just some minor changes. In terms of performance, this slide just gives you kind of a 7-year history. I'm sure when Mr. Porte was here last year, he talked about it. So leading into the pandemic, you were averaging slightly over 4,000 participants. We saw the dip in the pandemic. We rebounded when we were one of the only camp providers that were offering programs in the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, and then we had a slight plateau last year. I'm pleased to announce that this year we did see an increase. It was actually an 8% increase over last summer. That represents 348 more registrations, or 244 unduplicated registrations. So when we look at the success of our programs, it's not just the total number of registrations, how many individuals are we serving? And then we also try to look at how many people are we serving and not the revenue, because we increase our fees every year. So just because we're making more money doesn't lead us to believe that we're serving more people. In this case, we did serve more people, and we're very excited about that. So this year, as you can see, we served just over 2,900 unduplicated or individual participants. We provided more than 196,000 hours of childcare for the community this summer. One of the key goals for the department is making sure that we have access to our programs. So we're always looking at ways to increase access to our programs. We partner with Santa Barbara Police Activities League, and with funding from the Park Foundation and the requirement for many of our contractors to provide scholarships as part of their agreement with the city. I'm happy to report that this year we provided 166 scholarships. That's 37 more than we were able to provide last year. That covered more than $48,000 in costs, which is about $2,000 more than we provided in 2023, and really made a lot of these programs available to families that normally would not have access to them. So we're very thankful not only for the commitment from our contractors, the work that the Campership Alliance does to facilitate that process, but the work that Park does to actually allow funds to come into Park and then be dedicated towards scholarships to provide these opportunities for youth. Another program that we look at every year, and it's really a success story for us, is our Summer Fun program. It's a 8-week program. It's a full day of activities. There's food provided for the participants as part of this. We're still at the one campus, which is at the Franklin Elementary School. The program capacity for this, for any of our sites, but specifically at Franklin, is 240 participants. One of the comments that we received from our youth activities supervisor, Mr. Savalich, was we actually served 293 participants this year, not including junior counselors, which is 30 more than we did the previous year. We were able to do that as families were making changes as they were going through summer, or kids withdrew from the program for any number of reasons. We had a very robust wait list, and we were able to bring families in and have them pick up those spaces without having to add staff or compromise our staffing ratios. In addition to serving the 293 participants in this program this year, we also had 25 junior counselors. And that's a big part of Parks and Recreation and our camp activities and what we're trying to get to the community. We end up hiring a lot of our junior counselors down the road as staff. And to be honest, we have permanent staff within the department that started as campers that went on to be junior counselors that are now permanent staff with the department. So we're very proud of that. I'd also like to acknowledge the Woods Clysons Foundation, who also provide up to $37,000 in funding. That was provided probably over a decade ago and allowed us to expand the length of the day of the service that we provide and add an additional week, which was timed based on the school district adding an extra week to their summer vacation at that time. Something that we don't talk about, and it's not factored into our summer camp program, but does exist in the summertime, we're actually proud to offer a very robust, very affordable swim lesson program. It's for ages 6 months to 12 years, and we offer that at Ortega Park and at Los Baños Pool. The swimming lessons are geared to teach youth and parents the importance of water safety as well as swimming, and these lessons as a lifelong technique can lead to lifelong fitness, recreation, can lead to college scholarships, just social activity, and it's something that's available to individuals of all abilities. This year's program that we did operate at those two sites served 690 registrations, so 498 unduplicated participants. We were also able to provide 61 scholarships this summer, and that was in thanks to a donation through the Park Foundation that we received from a group that did an annual beach cleanup. So they made a contribution that went directly back to Youth Swim to Learn program, and we're actually expecting a similar donation. We've actually received a similar donation this year for swimming lessons in 2025, so we're looking to use those funds to continue that scholarship program. We also had ongoing funding from the Audacious Foundation, so we were able to provide 200 swimsuits to participants that needed them, whether they were in the swim lesson program or if they showed up for our recreation swim program. We had swimsuits of different sizes and styles and so forth, so we were able to provide that as a benefit. In addition to the group swimming lessons, which are really a highlight, we also do offer year-round individual swim lessons, and those typically are hosted at Los Baños once we put the Ortega Park pool into its seasonal rest state. So excited about keeping those going throughout the fall and winter. In terms of how we did, I think every year we're looking at, what did we do great? Is there areas that we would look to improve? So as part of our debrief, we kind of do a roundtable. We look at all the things that staff have input on. Then we look at our evaluations. We're able to sort that through the surveys that we do. You can see that we received a 89% response here that parents would be likely or extremely likely to recommend our programs. That's 1% less than last year, but it's such a nominal change. So we're very excited about that, but we do take a lot of pride in that information. And as we receive that information during the summer, we actually share that directly with either supervisors, if it's a city program, or our independent contractors. So if there's things we need to improve as we're offering these programs throughout the course of this most recent 9-week summer, we're doing it in real time. And then we use this at the end of the year to kind of evaluate if that's a program that we want to bring back the following year and based on its success. In addition, we had an open-ended question where we seek additional feedback from registrants, and we had 91% of the registrants respond that they were satisfied or extremely satisfied with camp programming this year. This used to come to you as part of our P3 reports that we no longer do, but we still track that information just to make sure that it's something that is a good metric for us to try to uphold year over year. And then we have a series of testimonials from parents. I'm not going to read these, but what I would share is I'll bring them up, but I think, again, this speaks to the diversity of the types of programs that we're offering. So skate camp this year, this is the first year that we had Lobster Joe, who also offers our beach camp and also offers art camp, take over the skate camp park operations. We saw no drop off in terms of service level, parents' excitement, And as you can see from here, you know, a child that came in not knowing how to skate, by the time the summer program was over, was able to do some tricks. We've got the Lego camp, which is a popular camp. It's an all-day camp. We're always looking to ask the instructor to find different ways to do different Lego activities throughout the day, throughout the course of the week. So it's not just the same thing day over day throughout the 5 days of the program. And I think this captures, again, how well the instructors in this case modeled the program to keep the level of excitement high for children. Our beach volleyball camp, again, a contract-provided camp. You know, there are so many kids that go through this camp. There's probably on average anywhere from 100 to 112 kids per week for all 9 weeks of the summer. Some of those sessions will swell up to about 130, 135 participants. But it's affordable, it's a half-day program, it's something that parents can drop their child off, pick them up, and move them to some sort of afternoon activity. And there's levels for everybody, whether you're a beginner, you're starting to look at, you know, your indoor season may be finished, you want to be on, you know, your high school team or some other team. And now that beach volleyball is a CIF sport for the local high schools, especially for girls, there's a lot of players coming through beach volleyball camp that are then looking to actually advance into high school athletics. Theater camp. Ms. Zachary probably has a really good memory of this because her temporary office was relocated right behind the stage this summer because we've been out of our admin office. So similar to Busy Girls, we try to keep our Career Recreation Center busy and active. Theater camp is one of those things they spend all week working on a theme. At the end of the week, they do a presentation. We have a great instructor who's very enthusiastic. She brings in a lot of junior counselors herself, and those junior counselors do a phenomenal job. So we're very excited to talk about theater camp. And then the second to last testimonial is our ice skating camp. So this is new. We're relatively new. We've been doing ice hockey in partnership with Ice in Paradise. And at times we do after-school sessions throughout the year, but we've really determined that it's more beneficial to have it at times when there's school not in session. So we're looking at like the spring breaks, the winter breaks, those types of things. So in this situation, I really liked it. You know, basically it was, you know, didn't know how to skate, and by the time the camp was over, they were doing spins, and we're certainly tired every time we send a child home tired at the end of the day. I think that's a success for most of the parents that register their children in our programs. And then last, the Lobster Joe's. We've talked about this program in the past. What I would say is one of the great things partnering with Mr. Joe Evers, who provides the program, is any of the camps that are hosted in the waterfront, so the ceramics camp, the skate camp, his art camp, all of those participants that participate in those other camps that are half day have the opportunity to join his program for the second half of the day. So kids are either picked up by his counselors and walked, and it's all within walking distance. So they're supervised, and that gives the parents a full day of camp activities. So a child may have a half day of art camp and then basically be on the beach in the afternoon. So we're very thankful that he does this. He provides that opportunity, and I think it's a good way for children to have that full day camp experience. And with that, concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing the queue thing come up, but I see that you are in queue, so there we go, there we go. So we will start, I guess we'll start with Commissioner Aldana.
I would say it's an awesome report. I'm glad to see that the numbers went up and the kids are very involved. You mentioned in 2025 there would be some minor changes. Just curious to know what changes.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, when I say minor changes, some of it is just ways we want to improve. So one of the things we rolled out this year was we did some branding. So all the activities had a Parks and Recreation flag that talked about, you know, so you knew where you're dropping your kid off. You realized it was a Parks and Recreation activity. We want to carry that a little bit further forward. We're always looking at ways to incorporate ways for kids to be safer, mostly sunscreen. So we had a very kind of a, I see everybody on the commission nodding. We had a very kind of slow roll into the season because it was a little foggy, but once we hit July, it was pretty hot most of the summer and so forth. So we're really looking at minor changes. In terms of registration, I think the February registration worked well, but we want to be able to build off of that. But those are really the minor changes. It's more of just tightening up what we do. And then if a new camp provider comes to us to offer something and they meet the criteria I described before, we'd be always happy to partner with another camp provider.
Got it, thank you. But beautiful job.
Commissioner Nando LaBerge.
So I'm the token representative of the commission of being a parent with kids that do the programs. And I've got a couple questions as far as the marketing materials. And we've talked about this before as far as the efforts by the department to do outreach to the Spanish-speaking population. And I'm curious, the materials that you presented here are beautiful, but do you have them in Spanish also?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Hernando LaBerge. So a couple of things. Those materials that you saw there are available on our website, and they can be translated using Google Translator. The only printed materials that we put out in bilingual or in Spanish is our summer fun program and a lot of our swimming lesson programs. But we partner with the Campership Alliance, who also help us get the word out in English and Spanish in terms as it relates to scholarships. And then any press release that the department sends out that's talking about our summer camp programs are also done in English and Spanish. But in terms of do we have our full volume of materials or our suite of materials that you saw in that campaign in English and Spanish, the answer is no.
Because I was noticing from the pictures and being the token parent, my kids are in the camps, they're pretty white. And the summer fun is pretty diverse in the other way. And so I'm just kind of like, we got these great scholarships. I'm just curious if you have demographic information.
Commissioner Hernando LaBerge, I don't have that in front of me, but our Campership Alliance program can provide that, and I'd be happy to follow up and provide that to the commission in a written communication.
Thank you.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Hernando LaBerge, I mean, one of the things we're very, very careful about is to make sure that if we have a program that serves children that are largely Spanish-speaking, we need to have counselors that also speak Spanish, not only for the children, but for their parents. As you can imagine, we do face situations where we have an issue and need to reach out and talk to a parent. And if the parent can't communicate with us and we can't communicate with them, we've failed at our job. I actually can look up, and I'd be happy to forward to you, the Campership Alliance report that we got. That included, if the commission remembers, the department was awarded, the excellence in supporting Campership Alliance. In fact, started Campership Alliance once upon a time with the ideas that it should be broad-based and should reach families that are unable to put their children in camp and may not even know it exists. And so I think while it may seem that everything should be bilingual, if we cannot provide that bilingual support, we have to manage our resources. We would love to do that, but realistically and financially, that's an undertaking that the city would have to determine it wants to support and subsidize dramatically to make it happen. It's not ideal. I would say we also are very aware of what other organizations are providing for camps and activities for children, but we are by far not the only one. And that's the wonderful thing, is that I remember the day, and I never did recreation, so you can imagine I was shocked, where we had people lining up down the street and around the corner to get into our programs. But the growth of programs that are available in this community is tremendous. And so I'm hopeful that more children, regardless of their socioeconomic status or Spanish or speaking language they speak at home, are being served that they otherwise may not have been served. But I will send that report because it does give you the demographics of the awards of those scholarships. And it's not just for the city. It's for the other organizations that also participate in the Campership Alliance.
Do we undertake efforts in staff recruitment to try and find bilingual? I mean, we're such an amazing city with how many people are bilingual here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't speak specifically to that, but I think Parks and Recreation has the most bilingual staff of any department. in the city of Santa Barbara. Don't quote me on that, but when it comes to actually identifying staff that can serve in a bilingual role, we have multiple staff that can do that. And there are many departments, by virtue of what they do and the type of technical knowledge you have to have, you're right, it's less likely to include people that are bilingual. So I think we do as well as we could, and we're always striving to do more, for sure.
Okay. I have one bragging point. My 9-year-old did junior lifeguards for the first time this year, and he did the whole summer, loved it, and he was the youngest camper to swim from where they start at the pier when they go in the water all the way back to East Beach. We were so proud.
Yeah.
And I think he did it twice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hernando LaBerge and just the commission in whole, the junior lifeguard program's changed a lot over the years. When I wouldn't say I was a part of that, but I oversaw it. It was very kind of structured. It was very competition-based, and so we started kind of intertwining these 3-week sessions within inside of the larger session, really, and lowering the age group so that kids could actually get experienced coming into the program, and then it could be something they continue on for years. The entire summer program is great because kids that have other competing camps and travel and so forth can kind of come in and out of the program, but we know they're safe because they've gone through the basics. So I give a lot of credit to the aquatic staff for taking a program and really molding it to really meet what I think this community wants to do in the summertime, which is be at the beach, and then all the valuable lessons that come from that are also great. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, he had a good time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clark, Vice Chair Clark.
Just for the record, you're not the token representative. I had a kid do theater camp. He was a flying monkey. That summer, he did skate camp, and then he was a junior counselor. I had another kid do aqua camp, and then he was a junior counselor, and then they did Lego camp, and like the list goes on and on and on. So I feel like the parent faction is well represented here between the two of us. And then just a quick question. I don't know if this is even feasible or if it's done anywhere, but in an effort to serve a greater number of bilingual students or kids with a limiting factor being bilingual counselors, I know in the hospital we use interpreters, like we'll share one interpreter for, tons of patients. I wonder how feasible it is to have someone whose job focus could be, helping with that as opposed to being a straight counselor, and if that would be able to increase your capacity at all.
Sure. Chair McGill and Vice Chair Clark and Commissioners, that's a great question. I can speak a little bit more to what Ms. Zachary said. So our summer fund staff, many of them work in the school district as RAP counselors, and so I would say, and at all of our RAP sites, there is somebody that's bilingual, if not more than one, and so they then transfer into our summer fund program. I would also add that we have, to the best of our ability, tried to expand our bilingual staff. We're actually working with the job apprentice program. So one of the things we did with the swimming lesson program this year is we had some job apprentice youth come in and actually serve in that kind of translator type role, which really helped a lot. It was kind of our first, pilot into that. So we are looking to expand that as we go forward. And then just as a parent that's calling our offices, almost all of our recreation offices have somebody that is bilingual. So if somebody really is looking to sign up for a Parks and Recreation program, we have somebody that's typically there that can actually answer that question. And if not, we have other resources within the department. But we are cognizant of the need moving forward. And so the liaison, the translator, the person we can share is not a bad concept that we can look at for 2025.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'll certainly add my kudos. I look forward to this report every year because it's always just a nice way to end a session, doing something that feels really good. And, the only thing I would encourage, as always, is to do everything we can to increase access to summer fun, because obviously with a waiting list like that, there's a need that's still not being met for all the reasons we've talked about over the years. And so that's a big one. If we could ever get there, that'd be great. But really super, it's really super to see this kind of diversity in activities for kids during the summer, and the way it activates the parks as well. Yeah. And Commissioner.
Quick question. On the summer fun, is there any possibility to talk about doing a second campus, maybe on the west side or something, or Mesa?
So Chair McGill and Commissioner Inanda LaBerge, there's a couple of factors in that. Right now, the department is working with the school district on a new MOU agreement that would, some ways, I guess, codify or actually call out the types of programs where we share facilities and resources and who we're serving and so forth. I think that needs to go forward from more of the executive management level in the school district to go into place so that we have certainty in terms of where we can provide that program every year. We used to have 3 summer fun sites, and then we went to 2, and we always had one on the east side and the west side. And the other thing that we had struggled with until probably this year is just staff recruitment and retention. I'm very proud to say that this department made a big step, and you heard about this in the budget this year. We increased essentially the entry-level camp counselor, program provider, and all that, somewhere to $4 to $5 an hour, which put us above a lot of our competitors. And when I was talking to a lot of the staff that come back year over year, that was a factor in them returning. So every time we bring somebody back, it provides a higher level of program, more familiarity. We don't have to spend as much training time on them, so we can use those resources differently. I'd like to think, in year 2, not that we're coming forward with a huge hourly increase as part of the budget this year, that if we have access to a campus, we may have to start at a smaller scale, but I do like the idea of getting back to something that serves both sides of the community.
That would be great.
And Chair McGill, Commissioner Inanda LaBerge, if you recall, when we were required to make very significant budget reductions in fiscal year '24 as well as in this fiscal year. Not only that, but take a very hard look at our ability to offset city subsidies with fees. One of the programs that we did have to reduce is the summer fun program. In our draft MOU that we are working with the school district on, we want to retain the option of having a second site, and McKinley School, for example, is a perfect example in location where we could do that. But it is largely subsidized by the general fund, and so that's a decision that gets made at the expense of something else the department might do, whether it's maintaining a city park or offering other free programs or services or any other number of considerations that we have. And so that's the challenge we face. The Wood Clayson's Foundation has generously given us $37,000 a year, which is about 15% of the cost of the program for one site. So when you think about it, you're talking about $400,000 to provide this program. Don't quote me on that, but a significant amount of money, because it's the staffing, right? You have to have the staff ratios in order to serve enough children, and then also make sure we're serving the right population. So it's really critical that we're reaching those children that need it the most, the families that need it the most, versus it being an option for a family that could very well to do a different camp and be able to afford it financially. So we would love to do more. It's just, how do we make that happen?
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I think with that, we shall adjourn and see you all next month.